go on air, but
Yeah. So what are you drinking? Not that
Coors,
not that we're live yet or anything,
crappy Coors Light.
but we are. Welcome to the Lovecraft eZine podcast. Pete is drinking really bad Coors Light. Pete also watches really bad horror movies. Supposedly.
No, yeah, just because I refuse to watch what is it, Lamageddon for you?
Lamageddon.
No.
I'm not gonna watch it, but Mike DeBronzo says that you should watch it. It's like a train wreck.
I watched Black Sheep many years ago, and that was a good movie on the same genre.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going. I don't.
That's a genre.
Farm Animals Gone Bad, sure.
I think this is a llama from space, but I haven't seen it. Hey, if you're watching live, let us know that you can hear us.
We're still talking about this?
Well, you know, I just can't believe that there's a horrible movie out there that Pete Rollick won't watch. And I bet I could get the creators of the movie on the show and you could interview them, Pete. It would be a dream come true for you.
I would rather watch Velocipaster again.
Okay. I think I see where you're going with this.
Velocipaster?
Yes.
Is that like a raptor that goes into the priesthood?
Yeah, pretty much. It's actually the other way around.
If DeBronzo says it's good, then I don't know what your problem is. But anyway, yes, we will move on. Today we have Kathy Koja and Christopher Lane as our guests. Hey guys, how are you?
We're doing well.
Yeah, doing well.
Chris is in New Zealand, not New England, New Zealand. Kathy, you're in.
I'm in Detroit.
Detroit, right? All right, let's talk about a couple. You know what? First thing we could talk about is our lovely second wave of COVID, especially in Texas and Florida, right, Pete?
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun. For some reason, because everything relates to horror, I was thinking of the end of Scream, where the killer is down. You know, who is it? Skeet Ulrich or somebody like that, Yorick. Yeah. And Jamie's like, careful. This is the moment where the supposedly dead killer comes back to life for one last scare. And I'm like, that's COVID. That's exactly what's going on right now. We thought he was dead and he's coming back to life. So anyway, everybody stay safe out there. I'm not masked up right now, but I think you guys are safe. So
you could make an argument about whether a virus is alive, but that's another question.
It's a question we don't need answered, at least not on the show. Good evening to everybody who's watching live. Good evening or morning or whatever to everyone who's watching later. And hello to everyone who's listening later in their cars, or maybe listening at 3 a.m. in their bed, or while they're working out somewhere. Anyway, thank you all. Thank you especially to the Patreons. Yes, I do have a Patreon. Thank you for asking. Just Google Lovecraft eZine Patreon, actually, or I have the link in the show notes, and you get some pretty cool stuff. Laird recently talked about in a Patreon podcast, Laird Barron, about some strange but true horrible things that have happened to him that were just really creepy as hell. Nadia Bolkin and Paul Tremblay and I recently talked about Lake Mungo in a Patreon podcast. These are only like $5 a month. I mean, there's higher perks. And Jack the Ripper, we talked about Jack the Ripper recently. So, you know, lots of cool stuff. And then what else do I have? If you are watching live, I will mention one last money thing and then I will move on. Since my wife is a teacher and this is the only thing I can do for a living. If you're watching live, there's a $sign down at the bottom of the text. And you can give me a tip if you think Pete's doing a good job. For example, give me a tip in the text chat. So that's how that works, right, Pete?
That's right.
So anyway, if you're watching before August the 20th, 2021, I have a link in the show notes. Once again, you can win a Cthulhu t-shirt. Really cool new drawing by a guy by the name of Paul Carrick. And there's no catch. It's a random drawing. So check that out. That link is in the show notes. And then last but not least, you know what I found is that the ratings at Apple Podcasts help the audio edition of the show a lot. So, even if you just watch or if you listen, say on Spotify, for example, please head over to Apple or /iTunes and give me a review. Preferably a true 5-star review. I mean, right, Pete, Rick, Matt, there could not be a way to do 4 stars and below, could there? Or is that the only thing possible?
Well,
one star.
Are you asking?
Star.
I'm sorry. Are you asking me to think? It's really not fair.
I'm sorry. All right. Well. You just remember, Apple. If you actually do like the show, head over there. So please. Okay, we talked about the patrons. Let's do introductions, and then we're going to talk to Kathy first. So I'm Mike Davis, Lovecraft eZine. I'm not sure what my job title is. Rick, let's start with you.
I'm Rick Lay. I'm drinking ginger ale. And I am a grandfather for the second time.
Hey, congratulations.
Congratulations, buddy.
The baby was born on Friday the 13th. And the original plan had been to name the kid Jason, but obviously that was that's absolutely true.
I love it.
My son and his darling wife were going to name him Jason originally.
Oh my gosh.
Well,
yes. Yeah.
His name is Thomas, Thomas Joseph.
Kim Smeltzer, Chris, you're going to love this. Kim Smeltzer just said, Mike, your background is great. If you like this background, see, I'm looking at Chris Lane's website because I think, this might be a professional thing to do if we're going to interview him. And then he's got a link to his, he's laughing at me already. He's got a link to his wife's website, which she's an artist. And this is just one of many there. And again, the link to her art site is in the YouTube show notes. And if you're listening to this later, it will be in the show notes there too. So, yeah, this is really cool stuff, Chris.
Yeah, her work's amazing.
Yeah. So I picked one that I really especially liked and chose it as my background.
So Kim, if you just scroll up in the comments on the YouTube chat, you'll see it says www.marylane.co.nz.
Yeah.
That's your link.
LAINE. Mary Lane, LAINE.co.nz.
But it's also on the Facebook page, so you can find it there.
Yeah. Mike Downs just tipped me $10. Man, you're a saint. Thank you very much, buddy. I really do appreciate that. I honestly am poor, so I do appreciate that. Let's let Pete introduce yourself, please.
Oh, me, Pete Rawlik, not an alcoholic.
Whatever.
You don't get to make that call on yourself, buddy.
Yeah, we'll make that call.
What was that?
Yeah, true.
What was that?
It rhymed.
Oh, it rhymed. Oh, Pete Rawlik. Oh, yeah, you're right. I never thought of it.
Yeah. Is there anything else you do?
First-time caller.
Long time listener, first time caller.
So the funny thing is, I think I've met and had, I think I've had lunch with Kathy Koja, but I don't expect her to remember it. I think we met at the 1995 World Horror Convention.
No, she was, of course she would remember it. She would remember it. She was trying to get rid of you. You were stalking her.
I don't remember what I had for lunch today. If I even had lunch today.
95, that was a long time ago.
95, yeah. Yeah, that was a long time ago. But
Yeah,
anyway,
it was. I mean, that's the year I met my wife. So yeah. And last but not least, Matt Carpenter, who has a prize to give away.
Yes, they do. Our prize, I'm Matt Carpenter. How you doing? Our prize today is a hardcover copy of the second printing of the Library of America edition of Lovecraft Tales selected by Peter Straub. So if you want this, you send an email to ezineprizes@gmail.com, put HPL in the subject heading. We do the drawing 5 to 6 weeks after the show, so anyone who's listening later still has a chance to enter. But it could be you to win this. If you don't enter, you can't win.
On that note, I did get a little behind converting shows to audio, and I do mean a little behind. I'm like one behind now. So my goal after that is when we do a Sunday show is starting next week to have the audio of that Sunday show up Wednesday on iTunes and Spotify and so forth. So anyway, we introduced everybody. Let's have Christopher Lane. We're going to talk to him in just a little bit. Really good to see you, Chris. I was talking to you in the video test, and we have a lot in common: time travel and other things. So, and Pete Rollick reviewed your book Screens for the Lovecraft eZine website recently.
Yep.
So, but let's talk to Kathy Koja. So here's what's going on. I stumble onto an article on Boing Boing about Kathy Koja and something called Dark Factory. And I just really don't quite understand what it is, other than that it looks really, really cool. There's a novel involved, and I don't know, the rest of it looked like sort of like an ARG, but I could be completely wrong. So I thought, Kathy's going to be here in October again, but I did not. I sent a quick note to Kathy, and I said I really don't want to wait till October to talk to you about this, because I want to get the word out there. This sounds really cool. So Kathy, before you talk about Dark Factory, which is what it's called, could you just introduce yourself for those who don't know who you are? One of your most famous books is Cipher, which is an amazing book. If you're a horror reader, you probably have read it. So, but anyway, please tell the audience about yourself for anybody out there who may not know who you are.
Well, if you don't know me, I'm really nice. So you should meet me, and we should probably, have coffee sometime, because I'm super nice, and I will ask about your pets, and I'll remember all their names. I might not remember anything else like what we had for lunch, but I will remember your animals' names. I'm Kathy Koja. I'm a writer and producer and director of live and immersive events, which the pandemic has completely quashed. So that's one of the unexpected boons in making Dark Factory. Dark Factory is a combination of my writing and my immersive creation work. And starting in 2010, I started doing immersive environments and performances. I adapted Dracula, I adapted Wuthering Heights, I adapted Alice in Wonderland, Faustus, Christopher Marlowe's Edward II. I adapted my own Under the Poppy, which features Victorian sex puppets in a brothel, which if you have not read it, and if you only know me from my horror work, I strongly suggest you pick this up. It is not for everyone. The first chapter, it's kind of like you have to be this tall to ride this ride. If you read the first chapter and you like it, this book is for you. If you don't, no harm, no foul. I say this because some people have been sandbagged by that first chapter, or they have said so to me.
Where can people find that?
People can find that actually Under the Poppy can be had from me. So you can go to kathykoja.com and order the book there. Or it can also be gotten elsewhere, but if you get it from me, it's signed. So it's better. It's just better that way. It's just
And I did link to your site in the show notes as well. Kathy is a KATHE.
KATHEKOJA. Kathy
Right. For
Coyne.
those who are listening later, you're in your car,
Yeah.
whatever, that's how you spell it.
And so all this immersive, this idea of taking a person and putting them in an environment that's happening all around them and that they can choose to interact with or not, which is actually what we do when we read, right? I mean, we are theoretically, we're sitting here staring at a device or at a piece of paper or whatever, but we're creating this environment in collaboration with the writer, and everybody's experience is a little bit different because we're all different readers. So Dark Factory, and I have actually written this on a piece of paper because I wanted to say it concisely. Okay, Dark Factory is a dance club, 3 floors of DJs, drinks, and state-of-the-art customizable reality, anything and everything you see and hear and feel. Ari Reagan is the club's wild card floor manager. Max Casper is a stubborn DIY artist, and they're both chasing the ultimate experience, a vision of true reality.
Okay,
Well,
I don't want to be rude, but I want to stop you right there and ask a quick question.
You can't stop me because the paragraph's not done. Then you can stop.
Oh my God.
We're missing
That is
one
faux
character.
pas. Okay,
Oh,
continue.
journalist Marfa Carpenter is there to write it all down. And those 3 characters are the characters that are on the site. See, that's why we can't leave Marfa out. It would just be wrong.
Well, I don't want to leave her out. I just
don't leave her out.
I just wanted to
now
pause
you
there
can
for a minute.
interrupt me. I'm ready.
All right, really dumb question. This is virtual, right?
It is and it isn't.
Okay.
It will come out in all the ways that we expect a novel to come out. There will be a print book, there will be an ebook, there will be an audiobook. And there is right now the site darkfactory.club that people can go to immediately and start meeting these characters and start getting a taste of the world, which will also include a virtual component as we go further along.
I mean, are we talking like a text chat format, or are we talking about like a Second Life type thing?
Which we are, one of the interesting things about developing something virtual now is that the platforms are changing and evolving so quickly that you almost have to pick one and hold. But since the book itself is being the narrative itself, let's say, and I don't like that word because it sounds like kind of grand, like with the narrative is being created in real time, but it is being created in real time. And that the story can be followed by anybody at this point who wants to go online and look at it. And what I'm really hoping for, just like in my immersive shows and performances, is to get maximum patron involvement. And the reason I use the word patron instead of audience, to me, audience is a very passive word. If you're the audience, you're just sitting and watching or listening. If you are literally a patron in the sense of you're patronizing a place, it's your presence that helps make it. If you patronize a restaurant, if you do not, you're going to be an empty seat. So
yeah,
to patronize something in that sense is to like give your energy and your time and your ideas and whatever to this project. And that is what I'm really hoping for. And I have to give a huge shout out to Trisha Reeks at Meerkat Press, who has been unbelievably creative and collaborative in this effort. The website design, so many of the creative ideas, so much of the realization of the look of Dark Factory is down to Trisha. So I give her all the props in the world. She's a fantastic collaborator. And Meerkat Press has been, I can't think of another press that would be as bold to say, okay, we're going to do this thing that we're not even entirely sure what we're making yet, but we know we got to make it because it's fun. So, and I'm talking to all kinds of visual artists and DJs and a scent creator and all kinds of people to make this world as real as it can be.
Are you talking about besides, of course, the book and what you might call static narrative. You're talking about at darkfactory.club that the audience is actually helping to, say, create the story in a collaborative way. Is that what you mean?
One of the things that I learned from making immersive events is that the patrons would often use things that I and my collaborators had made in interesting and surprising ways that we did not foresee and did not expect, but were completely right and were super cool. A very quick example at our show called The Heights, which was Wuthering Heights. We wanted people to be able to physically make a comment. We did it in a big gallery and the walls are, gallery white. And we wanted people to be able to make a comment on the wall, but we couldn't figure out, well, we can't use Sharpies. We can't do this. We can't do that. So we said, all right, we'll have paint, but we couldn't figure out how to use paintbrushes. Can we give everybody, all right, that's stupid. Just be finger paint. We'll just have a bowl of finger paint, like kindergarten. We all write on the walls. And offering people, when the show was ended, we asked people to respond to a question that we had asked and write their answer on the wall. And people took this experience of just taking this little wooden bowl of paint and turned it into this ritual. And they did this completely we just stood there kind of agape in a happy way. They would dip their fingers in the bowl and write whatever they had to write on the wall. And then they would very carefully hand the bowl to the next person and then wipe their hands off and then go outside. It was riveting. It was very mystic in a way. And it happened spontaneously every single night. We didn't tell anybody what to do. That's how they all chose to do it. So I'm hoping for involvement like that people take this idea of what it would be like. The bedrock idea of Dark Factory is how much leeway do we have to shape our own reality, and what would we want that reality to be like if we could, and to take that idea and kind of run with it and see what they come up with. And we will have a lot of different ways, different portals for people to respond. Maybe they want to write something, maybe they want to make a video, maybe they want to do some music, maybe they want to make some art. Always to keep expanding this world and remake the reality in their own imagination.
I think I'm beginning to get it a little bit. Well, will they is the best scenario or preferable scenario in your view for them? Okay, the book comes out next May? And,
right. Wait till then. They're not going to wait till then.
Okay.
Because we're going to have, and I hesitate to lay down, timetables yet, because Trisha and I are still figuring out what is the best way to involve folks or to make it something fun that people would like to be part of. And the best idea I can offer now is to just go look at darkfactory.club and get a feel for what is up there. Is this
darkfactory.club?
Right. And are you visually interested in this world? Does it make you want to make some music? What is it saying to you? And once you do that, we're still developing the best ways that people can respond and be part of it.
And then when they read the book, they'll understand it even better. It just seems like the book might be kind of a bedrock.
Just totally blown. No, their minds will be a little bit blown. They'll be able to see, because the narrative in the book is pretty much what happens. It's like, here is a real time of all the things that are happening to these characters. And you have already gotten to know them through the site and get a feel for their personalities and kind of know some things that have happened to them already and some things that have happened at the club. It's kind of again, people can choose to only literally sit and read the print book and get involved in no other way. And that's perfectly fine. We want there to be levels of experience available for anybody who wants to engage. If that's how you best engage with this story, that's great. If you rather have ebook, whatever, audio, whatever, or the whole full experience. It's like when you watch a film, and you might like it and say that's great, and then you don't think about it again. Or you might like obsessively want to, it's like, I must get on Reddit immediately. I must get the director's cut. I must, because I want to know. I want to know all the little things. So we want all the little things to be there. If you go looking for them, we want them to be there.
Okay. Guys, do you have any questions about this?
You all look completely stunned.
I'm starting to get, I think, a glimmer of what it's going to be, and part of that is that it's evolving.
It sounds so much more complicated than it is. It is not. It's like any story. It's just we're trying to open the door a little bit more so people are involved.
This is actually just kind of like, this evolution has been going on for a long time now of combined media, you know, even to the days where, like, in the Romantic era in the 1800s, they thought all art was going to be synthesized into a single kind of performance experience. That's the whole part of Wagner's Ring cycle, was to try to have a multimedia sensation. I know when my kids were in school, they would get books from, say, Scholastic, where in order to have the full experience of the book, you had to log into a website and look at pictures or clues for the mystery as well.
Right.
We've allowed graphic novels to take on an aspect of storytelling that was previously reserved for the printed word. We now do LARP, which is, it's not just enough that you're going to have a tabletop role-playing game. You are the role player. I think this is just a step in that direction of trying to combine many different types of media. It's the service is telling a story.
Absolutely.
I remember 12 to 13 years ago, Matt and Kathy, reading a book where it was a mystery, but you were sort of there with the protagonist to help solve the mystery. And there were actual real phone numbers in the book to call, like to talk to characters and things like that. And this just seems to me like you're telling a story, Kathy, in a different way, in an immersive way.
Exactly. And the trying to leave it open as much as possible for people to be involved is part of that whole idea of opening, to be as open as you can and to invite people to contribute if they want to, but not to make it mandatory. Because I did learn from the live performances, some people, their best and most fulfilling way to be part of something is to sit and watch it, because they're primarily visual. They just want to watch it. They don't want to, and nothing is worse than people, you know, running up on you and trying to make you do dinner theater. I mean, nobody wants that.
Right.
That's not, so I don't want people to feel like they must do all these things or it won't be fun for them. It will hopefully be fun.
You immerse yourself at the level that is enjoyable and comfortable for you.
Right. And the more you want to do, the more that it's there. But yeah, for sure. It's even, I mean, if you think of the Bronte family writing their paracosms, you know, where all their stories would interact and they had characters that they would switch back and forth. And these were kids writing in teeny tiny little notebooks. Exact same idea.
Well, I guess you could say the simple version of this is that you're telling a story, and there is a book, there's an audio book, there's a Kindle book, but you're also adding to that story. You're telling, I wouldn't say adding to, that's not well put. You're telling the story in a multimedia way as well, and wanting the audience to help tell the story. If I'm getting what you're saying.
You are getting it 100%.
Okay, that's good. And I love it. I mean, this is 21st century, and I will never get tired of books. Never. I love books. But it's so nice when you can do things like this now. You know, I've always viewed it as, you know, people, I think a lot of people view reading as a passive thing. My wife's an English teacher, and she asked me the other day, do you view books as looking through a window or walking down a road? And I said, well, definitely walking down a road, because I feel like when I'm reading a book, I'm exploring. I'm in another world. I'm in another character's mind, perhaps. You know, I'm on the Starship Enterprise, or I'm in Middle Earth, or I'm on a version of this planet where a person, you know, is having mundane problems like me and somehow gets through them. It doesn't matter, but I'm exploring is what I'm
Right.
doing.
And every book is going to be different. Every book is always different. I mean, the same, how many times have you and a friend have read the same thing and had wildly different experiences or wildly different reactions to it? Because every
Absolutely.
reader, right, creates it's not passive at all. And the more active the reader, the more fulfilling it is for sure for the writer, because you know that people are engaging with your stuff in a way that, and that doesn't even mean they have to love it. I mean, it doesn't, you want engagement. For many of my novels, and the Cipher is a good example as any, some people really, really like it and some people really, really don't. And I'm glad for the engagement in both cases. The whole point of making something is to put it out there for people to then take in. They don't, if it's a 1-star experience to them, then that's what it is to them. I have no complaints. They are entitled to their opinion.
I have a writer friend who says that you write what you feel like you need and want to write, and then once it's out in the world, it's out of your hands and it's up to the reader how they want to experience it. I'm paraphrasing him badly, but it's something like that.
And that's the whole point of it. I mean, you're not there to police people and stand over their shoulder and say, I want, you know, of course I would like everyone to love everything I do, but that's probably not going to happen. And as long as it's an engaging experience one way or another, I'm perfectly satisfied.
Now, I don't want to just constantly, it's like interviewing William Shatner and only talking about Star Trek, right? When he's done so many other things. He really has. Boston Legal, for example, he was brilliant in. My point is, I don't want to just keep bringing up the Cipher, but that was written in the 90s, somewhere around in there.
Yep.
And yeah, and if you haven't read this book, folks, I think it is a good start to Kathy's work, but she's also doing these new and exciting things like with Dark Factory. And you know, it amazes me. Can you, before you go, can you tell us a bit more about, you're not just a writer, you worked in theater so much. Do you, help me out here, do you own your own theater, rent it, and you always have access to it? Or tell me more about that before you go.
No, what I have always done is site-specific performances. So either it's a commission and someone hires you and says, we want you to do a show in our garden, which I have done. In fact, one of them was Wagner. They asked us to do, their idea was a 30-minute ring cycle. And so I collaborated with a musician who was a Wagner scholar and had him score that for guitar, which worked surprisingly well. Because there was no way we're going to put like an orchestra in these people's literal gardens. So, but no, it's always site specific. And the idea is to come into I'll have an idea for something. I will find a space to do it in and then start creating within the boundaries of that space. And I've done stuff in galleries. I've done stuff in old houses, in a preschool, outside on a big plaza by the Detroit River, all kinds of places, in an art museum. And you're taking the parameters of that site are part of what you're doing. And because the plague stopped live performance in that sense, it was kind of a left-handed gift, because like this right now, we're all in different parts of the world, but we can talk to each other. We don't have to give that up. Even when, COVID is under control, we will still continue to do this. So I thought, well, why don't I make something that, since we can't be together, we can be together at this dance club, and
This is a
Anyone-
version of what you've been doing all this
Yeah.
time, but you're now
Anyone can
doing it
come.
virtually because of COVID.
Right, and anyone can come and be part of it, which would not be possible for, obviously physical experience. So I'm hoping
I-
that they,
I did not realize it was site specific, but I get it now, and I'm not trying to butter you up, but I think the things that you do are really, really cool, Kathy. I think you have an amazing imagination, and hey, plus you write books on top of all that. So
and I'll remember your pet's name.
I have 7 pets, so it could be a challenge.
Well, what's
So.
their name?
All right.
You
Their
don't know.
name. Cats, 6 cats and dog. Can you remember that?
Well, yeah, but that's not their names.
Okay.
You don't say, "Hey, cat 1," unless you do.
Oh,
which is,
my mother used to
I
call
don't know.
her number 1.
cat 1. Like thing 2 and thing 1?
No, I think she called Pete number 1, boy 1.
No. My mother used to refer to me as shithead number 1.
Oh my God.
Well, I'll never remember that.
Yeah.
You're not an animal.
I have 11 brothers and sisters, so she just ran out of names. And
Okay,
just-
well, that, yeah. Or you start calling them by different names. My mother did that. Like, after a while, they just point. You,
Yes,
or
you.
there.
Right.
Stop whatever you're doing. Are you doing that? Stop it. Or start doing it. Why aren't you doing it? After a certain point. No,
All right. Darkfactory.club.
Dark Factory Club, come and check out the club and buy your merch. I'm wearing my merch shirt and check it out. Think of
Dark
it.
Factory merch.
And if people want to hit me up on the socials as well, I'm easy to find on Twitter and Facebook. If you have ideas or thoughts about Dark Factory, hit me up there too. Thank you for letting me have the real estate to talk about this today. I appreciate it.
Oh gosh,
Kathy,
every time you come on, I'm like, what are we doing again? Oh right, this is cool. So yes, Pete.
all right. So I have Bad Brains and Cypher and Skin, all sitting on the shelf. And last year, my daughter had to order her whatever she had to read for school, and the box comes in, and she's like, "Dad, you might like this." And she
You might like this.
No, she handed me Buddha Boy.
Oh, cool.
She handed you what?
Buddha Boy.
Buddha
Oh.
Boy. Sweet.
And I'm like, so wait. So this was a whole, genre that you're in that I'm not familiar with.
Oh yeah, I have 7 YA novels that I did with FSG, and for the very genius editor Francis Foster, who is sadly no longer alive. But yeah, I
That's
guess we're
everything, Pete. Everything.
7 books with her. It was fantastic.
Wow.
So yes, and actually the 3rd book that I did with her, called The Blue Mirror, is to me very much a horror novel. It's a retelling of the Demon Lover story. And so the streams just keep crossing.
Right.
Don't cross the streams.
Mhm.
Do you have pets?
Do I have pets?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You
Yes.
said you keep mentioning pets. All right, I was gonna tell this story, and then we're gonna get to Chris. Chris is like, God damn it. No, he's not. He's very easy. I was gonna tell this
Oh,
at the end, but I want to tell it while you're here. All right. So recently, I gave a couple bucks to a friend of a friend on Twitter who, the title of the GoFundMe was "Help Me and Moon Stand My Apartment," and she's sick some way, and Moon is her cat. So I was like, yeah, okay, I'm not gonna miss the $10. Maybe this will help. If everybody gave $10, it would help her out a lot. And so I'm on the GoFundMe app on my phone. And the point of this story is I'm like, oh right, GoFundMe has a history. I wonder which GoFundMes I've given to over the years, now and again, that I've completely forgotten about. So I look at one, another cat from 2.5 years ago. And there's a lady in our community who's got a big house, and she can do what my wife and I would love to do, which is rescue cats. She has that ability, you know.
Right.
And unfortunately, in this small town, a lot of people have house cats and they dump them, and I don't get it. Anyway, I stumbled across the GoFundMe that I had given to, that I'd completely forgotten about. And here's the GoFundMe. I'm going to read what she said. I'm crying. And the point of the story is there's horrible stories that happen that have wonderful, wonderful endings. She wrote, I'm crying. This is a house cat, or I should say was a house cat before his people failed him. He's got every possible problem a street cat could have, including either a broken foot, leg, or a previous break that hinders his movement. Sidebar, we found out later he also had BBs in him. Kids had shot BBs at him. To go on, she says he was trying to cross the street but was having trouble. I stopped and he got so excited. He begged me to take him. He was vocally begging me to take him. He is starving because his leg prevented him from being able to fight for food. He's got lots of battle wounds, impacted ears, you name it. I don't know what to do. I am knee deep in cats. He makes number 7 in under 30 days. I have no place for him and no money for medical. Can anyone help in any way? I can't help but wonder how many hundreds of people saw this cat suffering over months, maybe years, and did nothing to help. I am appalled and disgusted. I'm having trouble wrapping my brain around how long he's been like this and how many people chose to look the other way. If he's lucky enough to go to a medical rescue, I will forward funds raised to that rescue. If he sticks with me, I will do my best to do right by this precious boy. I'm skipping ahead. He cannot bear weight on his left rear leg. His front right leg is swollen. I just guesstimated on the amount needed. Maybe more, maybe less, but it's a fair guess. Thank you so much for pitching in. This is the GoFundMe. And I had given to it, and it made me really sad. And then I thought, I've done what I can do. My son is actually friends with her son. And they used to go over his house a lot and play like Magic the Gathering and D&D and stuff like that. And this is about maybe a year and a half ago, Logan says to me, you know, they got so many cats there. And I'm like, yeah, I know, she rescues cats. He goes, well, there's this one cat, his name's Henry, and he's just so laid back and he's so sweet. And there's such good people there, but he needs more attention and love and pats and, you know, and everything and hugs that they don't have the time to give him. And that is in no way, I'm not dissing this lady at all. She saved his life. But, you know, my son's a sensitive guy, and he said, can I bring him home if it's okay with my friend and with my friend's mom? And I said, yeah. And so we've had him like a year and a half now, and he's the most laid back cat. He's a big Pooh Bear. And I think you've guessed the end of this story. This is the cat. His name is Henry. This is the cat that she rescued that I've just read about 2.5 years ago. She had him for a year, and then Logan brought him over, and we've had him for a year and a half. And he loves his life. He's so sweet. All the bad things that have happened to him, yet he's so sweet, you know. And I discovered that like 2 weeks ago in the middle of the night when I couldn't sleep, and I just started crying, and I thought, what an amazing way this turned out, you know. I gave to this GoFundMe, and many other people did too. I'm not tooting my own horn, but then he ended up living with us, getting the love that he needs, you know, and he's in great health now. So anyway, this has nothing to do with horror other than the way people treat animals. But I've been wanting to tell this story for a while. And I think the people in the audience have been in the audience long enough to know that we talk about stuff like this sometimes. So we go off topic. So anyway, his name is Henry.
is on topic though. It is, because so much of what horror is about is cruelty and what it can do to the vulnerable, or what kind of cruelty has to be fought against or withstood on behalf of the vulnerable. I have to tell a story. I'm so fucking sorry to keep eating up this time, but I must tell this story. Once upon a time,
I'll keep Chris for 2 hours if I have.
This speaks to that, when you have no idea what you're doing, but you know you have to do it. When I was a very little girl, not quite that little, but little, I had a stuffed rabbit, and it was my constant companion. And in my grandmother's house, we were not allowed to go on the right-hand side looking down the stairs, because that side had like the big octopus furnace and all these terrible things in the pantry and all this shit you're not supposed to get into. And the other side was like the playroom and whatever. So of course we never wanted to go on the other side, because that's for babies.
Right.
So sighting down those stairs, my cousin and I go down, older cousin, down the stairs, and we go on the dark side. And I'm holding my rabbit, right? And we go on the dark side, and he blows past me because he's a giant coward, and he knocks his tiny little cousin over and starts running for the stairs. I'm like, what did you see? What did you see? He said, I saw the devil. And he runs up the fucking stairs. And I ran up the stairs behind him, and we slammed the door. And then I realized, my rabbit. Where's my rabbit? Where's my rabbit? And we open the door, and my rabbit is lying on the bottom of the stairs with only his head visible and his body in the darkness.
Oh.
On the bad side.
Yeah.
So what did I do? What could I do, right? Of course, I had to go down the stairs as fast as my little legs could carry me and get that rabbit. And I was so afraid, because my cousin, who I quasi trusted, he literally just saw the devil over there, okay?
What's that?
Rabbit, right? So I fell coming up the stairs, and I was so afraid that I crawled like a reptile. I couldn't take time to stand back up again. But I saved my rabbit.
Oh.
In a very tiny way. And of course, by then the grown-ups are like, why are you slamming all these doors? What are you doing? And we didn't tell them about the devil. I mean, what's the point? They're not going to do anything. But the whole point of this is that is horror in a nutshell, right? The innocent and vulnerable have got to be saved from the dark. You don't have a choice. You can't walk away. Like the woman said, all these people who saw this cat in such an appalling shape, and they walked away.
Yeah.
You just can't, because
sometimes
the devil. So
that reminds me of the Doctor Who episode, and then I'll let you go and talk to Chris, where he's got a new friend. Her name's Clara, and he goes, she's sort of learning how he operates, and he says, we don't walk away when there's a situation. We don't walk away. And what you just said were those exact words. So
we don't walk away from cats, from rabbits, from nobody. We don't walk away.
People in pain, whatever.
People lost. Yeah, no. You can't walk away.
Well, read Kathy Koja's books, kathykoja.com. Check out darkfactory.club. Kathy, I always really, really enjoy talking with you, and I will see you again in October with Jennifer. So
yes, with Jenny Bruckelaar. She and I will be reading on Halloween night, and we will have candy. So
that's right. It is Halloween night that we're doing this. Very fitting.
Right. And we will be eating candy. We'll probably be drunk on candy at this point. So everybody, please come and join us.
Or Jennifer, it'll be the next morning, but she'll still be in the spirit of Halloween.
She'll be whacked out on candy. She might even be worse for wearing it.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Kathy.
Thank you so much. Thank you for
having me. You have a good night, okay?
Bye, guys.
Bye. Thank you, Chris. You're a very patient man.
Don't worry about it, man.
So let's talk to Chris. And again, if you like what you see behind me, this is Chris's wife's art, and I have it in the show notes. Her link to her website. It's the kind of stuff that I really love. but I stumbled across that when I was obviously looking at your site. Pete's going to do a lot of the interview with you, Pete.
Cool.
In it. Oh, did I not tell you? Sorry. Pete reviewed your book Screens
Yep.
a few months back for Lovecraft eZine, for the Lovecraft eZine website. Yep. And so let me just read the Amazon synopsis of Screens, and then I want to let Pete take over for a bit.
Cool.
Screens by Christopher Lane. That's Laine. By the way, if you do have Kindle, it's on Kindle Unlimited. So no excuse. Buy this. This is great. I've read this. You found this, Chumley. Good for you. Now take my advice and put it back down. This manuscript isn't meant for you. You don't have the stomach. Sometime in 2016, dark web posts began appearing about a document known only as the manuscript. Originally created with a manual typewriter and impossible to digitize, the manuscript can only be read by those who procure one of its precious few copies. It is said that the manuscript contains horrific knowledge, and those who have read it have immediately disconnected from the internet, vanished off the digital grid, never to return. And now what got me initially interested was the contains horrific knowledge, because I had some flashes of King in Yellow, you know, yellow sign stuff. So to continue, in short order, all online posts regarding the manuscript were gone without a trace. Everyone with any knowledge or connection to them has disappeared or been gruesomely murdered. Something horrible is happening. Something unspeakable is coming. Now that sounds Lovecraftian. And yet you can't seem to stop from staring at that television, that computer, that mobile phone. Let me add in that Lovecraft eZine podcast. They, ironic, isn't it? They have you. And for all of your justifications and bravado, you can never turn away. Why are you still looking? They are watching you. This is a standalone read in the Seven Coins Drowning universe, which I will let you and Pete get to in a bit. So, Pete, you want to take it away?
Yeah, sure. So the burning question I have is that you went to San Francisco State University.
I did.
And you studied?
Literature. I studied literature and creative writing.
Well, there you go. So you're living the dream, right?
Yeah.
Well, plus he lives in New Zealand.
Yeah.
And you live in New Zealand, right? Which apparently is the only rational country on the planet right now.
Well, it does help
Canada, Denmark.
Yeah, it does help that we're an island. It's kind of hard for people to sneak across the border when you're out in the middle of the Pacific.
That's
a good point.
You got a good point.
Yeah.
So, so for like the first couple chapters of this, I'm like, this is like some, deep dive conspiracy novel.
Sure.
And it just keeps getting weirder. I'm reading it, and it's sort of like there's a book that my kids have called "Do Not Read This Book."
Oh yeah, I know the one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know it.
And there's a sequel. So, but anyway, but it's sort of like that's the premise of this book. It's like, hey, you pick this up, put it down, don't read this.
Yeah.
You're not
perfect title for a kid's book, right?
Yeah.
Don't touch the paint.
Yeah, I mean, wasn't that the whole Abby Hoffman thing with steal this book?
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Yeah, the same vibe of like, do not read this book. What person? I mean, what kid to start with? But what person in their right mind is going? You're not going to tell me what to do. Right. I'm going to read the book if I want to read the book. Not a horrible knowledge. It doesn't scare me.
So you're basically telling us not to read the book, but
in a way, yeah.
We're going to do exactly what you tell us.
Of course, yeah, of course.
Right? So you're sucking it in, but it's not to like, I don't know, the third or fourth chapter where suddenly there's a name drop, and that name is Halpin Chalmers.
Right.
And I'm like, And this is where I do the double take. You know, it's like where I put the book down. I was like, oh crap. You know, Mike sent me this thing to read. I know nothing about you or the book.
Sure.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
And all of a sudden, it's a Cthulhu Mythos novel. And I'm like, and it's one of the few characters, it's bringing off of not a Lovecraft character, but a Frank Belknap Long character who I've riffed off as well. And I'm like, oh, now I got to see what he did with this guy. I know what I did with this guy, and you know, and what's going on here. And then I'm like, wait, I just keep reading. And it's just like, this is getting really good. This is what drove you to do this, because I've only seen a few people do what you've done here. Colin Wilson did it with his space vampires and the mind parasites and the philosopher's thing. Reinvented the mythos for his own uses. Cody Goodfellow has done some similar things in Radiant Dawn and the Dusk book. But this is just and I just say this, it's not just a revamp, it's a reimagining of not just the Hounds of Tindalos, but also the Space Eaters.
Yeah. Which
I, for a long time, debated whether this was a sequel to one or the other. And I just said, fuck it. It's both.
It very much is. It is both. And I was very impressed and very happy that you mentioned Space Eaters in your review, because the both of them had a huge impact on obviously they had a huge impact and were massively inspirational to me when I wrote the book. So as to how this came about, so I was saying to Mike earlier, we were having a little chat before, when I was a kid, I was probably about 13 years old, and I got my hands on this. A friend of mine gave me this book. What is the name of it? I think it was called Awakenings, and it was this collection of art and short stories that was created in the 70s. And in it, a friend gave it to me. And in it was the first Lovecraftian story I ever read, which obviously was The Hounds of Tindalos, right? That was the first story I read, and I was blown away. Like, I had read Poe, and I had read other horror. I'd read Stephen King stuff because my dad was a huge Stephen King reader. But that was the first time that I was actually like thrown off base. Like, whoa, that was a lot to take in. And so that story stuck with me my entire life. It became this, that was how I got into Lovecraftian horror. It's how I got into lots of other books and more surrealist writing. And so it stuck with me my whole life. And I had written the other books in the Seven Coins Drowning series, which are more novellas. They're shorter, they're smaller, they feel more like Outer Limits or Night Gallery episodes, right? They're good, but they're smaller, right?
There's nothing wrong with that.
That's right. That can be a great experience, right? Like, oh, it had its moment, it's done. And when I wrote Screens the first time, it was very much in the same vein. And I got to the end and I was like, I kind of read my own work back to myself and I was like, I guess. And I knew it needed more to it. And that's when I really dove in and really dragged in Hal Pentravers. That's where he really got pulled into the story and how it really started to wrap around that whole piece of time travel. And so, that's how the book took off.
Yeah, and you mentioned this, and so it's not a spoiler anymore. There's a whole kind of wraparound, this like this Mobius strip that's running through the book.
Yeah,
because the book folds back on itself.
Yeah,
and there's this whole sort of time travel thing that Mike really loves.
I recommended like 3 time travel books to him. He's a huge fan too.
Yeah, I am. I already downloaded
when we did the video test. But
the time travel element is really subtle. I mean, it's played out. You see it happen, and And the first couple times you see it happen, I don't know that you recognize it as time travel. It's only when you see it again toward the end that you're like, oh, wait, that was this.
Yeah.
And it all sort of loops together.
And subtle time travel
Yeah,
is it's my favorite type, I think. You know.
Well, it to me, it kind of smacks a little of All You Zombies.
Yeah.
You know, you don't really know what's going on until somebody explains it to you.
Yeah. By the way, Predestination from All You Zombies, and it did add a few things, but it was actually a pretty decent adaptation, I have to say.
Yeah.
No, the film, yeah,
it's good.
and then you do tie it into your Seven Coins Drowning series, but once again with some skill, with a weird character that just seems to come out of nowhere, but still works because it has to. Somebody has to break the cycle. Someone has to step in and say, "You're locked in."
Yeah.
And start explaining things. And that character, I am assuming, runs through the series.
He does to an extent. Yeah.
Okay.
He reappears again and again throughout the story.
Can I jump in real quick? Because there's in another interview I read a fascinating account from Christopher about how Screens the book started in the first place. I think you were on a train or something.
Oh, sure.
And
Yeah,
it seems like to me this is sort of a book about, at least partially about addiction.
It's very much a book about addiction. I mean, so in writing the Seven Coins Drowning, each one is my retelling of one of the 7 deadly sins. But I've always felt the retelling of the 7 deadly sins it's been played out in many ways. And so I wanted each of them to really capture some real essence of modern, like if you were to take those sins now and translate them, I wanted it to be a more modern telling or a more unique telling of them. So anyway, it's got to be going back to 2015. I'm back in San Francisco for a conference I'm an IT engineer. So I was back in San Francisco for a conference, and I was on a Muni train, which is the local subway, if you don't know, in San Francisco. So I'm on a Muni train, and I've been back to San Francisco in, I don't know, 6 years. So I'm on the train and I'm looking around, and I noticed something which I had never seen before, because obviously it happens to some extent here, more and more it's happening, but I hadn't seen it on this scale. But I'm on this train and I'm just on my own. I'm just kind of basking in being back in San Francisco. And I look around, and aside from myself and this one old woman, every person on that train, and this is a packed train, right? Every person on the train is on their phone. Everyone. There's no one reading a book. There's nobody looking around. Obviously there's no newspapers, but everybody just gone, right? I remember having this visceral experience of sort of existential dread, like, whoa, what's going on here? And this is full disclosure. I spent my youth as a junkie. I was a pretty hardcore junkie, and it comes out in many ways in the book. And so getting clean, that was a whole experience in and of itself. But then seeing people on their phones, seeing them on their screens, seeing them so completely absorbed, it immediately clicked with that junkie part of me. Like, this is an addiction. These people they're not just doing it for fun. They can't turn that thing off, right? So they're on their phone when they're on the train, they're on their PC at work, they're on their phone at lunch break, they're on their phone on their way home, they go home, they turn on the TV, they watch that for 5-6 hours. And the only thing that really hit me was like, wow, this is like addiction. And so when I began writing Screens, I wanted to capture that essence of, we have become the victims of our own technological success. We have created a technology which is in many ways an addictive substance, right? Like, as you read through the book, and none of the stuff I put in the book about addiction and about screen addiction, none of it's fake. That's all researched information. You can look it up yourselves. And
interestingly, the very first quote, if I remember right, Chris, apologize for interrupting, is a quote
That's all right, man.
by Poe about his addictions.
Yeah,
And what he
that's
says
right.
about them.
Yeah,
And why he indulges in them.
That's right. And that is the reason he indulges in addiction has nothing to do with the joys or the highs, but about trying to stave off his depressive loneliness and the misery that he feels inside.
I often think that addiction is not a problem. It's a symptom of a problem.
Exactly, man. That's exactly it. Is that why people are addicted to things has very little to do with the substance itself. It very well, 99 times out of 100, I mean, there is a genetic disposition to addiction, obviously, but oftentimes when people are addicted, there is something else that is driving them to continue down that road. And so I wanted to not only show the addiction that we're all facing, that so many people face nowadays, but also I wanted to take the Hounds of Tindalos and kind of make them addicts for humanity, for feeding off humanity. Like there was no bottom to the amount of humanity they would feed on. And that we were the greatest drug that some horrific alien species could ever find. That we were their food, that our attention, that our minds was the perfect food stuff for them that they would never tire of consuming. But anyway.
I love it. By the way, one of my Patreons and live viewers, Alan, says just bought Screens on Kindle. Can't wait to read it. So
awesome.
I found for every person who says I've just bought one of the books you recommended, there's 15 others who did it that didn't say anything about it. So
awesome. I'm so glad.
So I think
it deserves to be read. Sorry, Pete,
thanks,
go ahead.
man. Yeah, Pete, go for it.
there's a quote from somebody said that one of the best things they've ever done and one of the worst things they've ever done is to watch the Lovecraft eZine for book recommendation.
That is true.
It's just,
I'm sorry.
A victim. Look, I'm a victim as well. I've gone. You guys have put up so many recommendations, and my Kindle bill has jacked up. And not to mention your film recommendations. I'm like, I'll buy that. I'll buy that. I'll buy.
Oh,
that.
you watched the show?
Yeah.
Oh man, thanks.
Yeah, no, I watched the show. I check out you guys' articles and your reviews, and based on Mike, I think it's yours. Your top 20 Lovecraftian films.
Yeah.
I went on and spent a great deal of money buying each and every one of them, the ones that I didn't already own. There's a Patreon I have who's going to help me update that list on the blog. The website needs to be horribly updated, but yes, that's a pretty good list. Yeah, it's a great list.
So I'm a lot like Christopher in that I have to go out and buy the things. I cannot live with having some service or multiple services that might have what I want when I want to watch it.
Yeah.
I mean, I've tried right now. You cannot watch Kolchak the Night Stalker on any service.
You can't.
What? Yeah, I got it on Amazon Prime. I bought it.
Yeah, you bought it. Right.
Yeah.
It's not up there right now for free.
Yeah.
Well, no.
It's not part of
I think ahead, man.
You may find bootleg copies on sites like Dailymotion now.
Yeah, exactly.
But the movies are not available digitally, even to buy. But I do have them on
Buy them
DVD.
in the hard copy.
Yeah, I've got the DVDs.
Yeah.
Pete, that's interesting that you mentioned the Night Stalker, because in making screens, or at least in publishing screens, I put a lot of, I don't know if you've seen them, but I put a lot of effort creating book trailers.
Okay.
Related to the book, and I'll be happy to kick a link over to you guys so you can. Check out.
Will you please do email me that later?
There's a channel that I've got on YouTube, but in one of them, this without for people who've read the book, great. For people who haven't, it doesn't really matter. But the whole Daniel Vea scene with the Spanish detective, I did that as one of my trailers, and as the part of the music to the trailer, I incorporated a combination of the Night Gallery theme and Kolchak's The Night Stalker.
There you go.
And when you mentioned The Night Stalker, I was like, oh my God, that's it. Yes. Anybody who knows all that classical horror knows the creepy feeling that you had up the back of your spine when that theme music came on.
The Horror in the Heights.
Oh my God! You just Pete, you're a mind reader. I was thinking of the Horror in the Heights, and they will be my two favorite episodes. And I was going to ask you, Chris, Matt, and Rick, your two favorite episodes, because we have to do this when we talk about Kolchak. We have no choice. So,
my two favorites.
Oh, while you think about it, Pete was talking. He was going to mention the Horror in the Heights. So, what were you going to say?
No, the Horror in the Heights, when they're walking down the alley. The old couple is walking down the alleyway, and you know they're going to die.
Right.
You know it.
Yeah.
Still, the music wraps up the tension.
Yeah.
So well, and then there's this all of a sudden this release because they recognize the person. And then you remember that's the whole issue behind the whole monster is that they recognize it.
Yeah, that's right.
So,
it follows.
Yeah, exactly.
And the monster never talks till the end.
Right.
Which makes you doubt whether that's the monster.
Yeah.
That's right.
I never thought about that, Rick. The monster never talks to the end until it's Kolchak and the old lady.
Yeah.
I'll let you in on a little secret, Mr. Kolchak. I'm only here because I want to write a novel and I need life experience. She's like 78 years old. And there's free typewriters and paper here.
All right. So, Chris, what are your two favorite episodes?
Or at least one. We don't put Mitch on the spot.
I'll give you my two favorite episodes of the two shows that most creeped me out as a kid. So, and they're both in the same vein. So, Night Stalker, the Voodoo Zombie one.
Oh, sure.
The Voodoo Zombie one. Most of it's creepy, but it's only that last scene when Kolchak is over him trying to sew his lips up.
Right.
I can't remember what he stuffs his mouth. Is it salt that he stuffs in his mouth? And he's trying to sew up his lips, and the whole time you can feel your shoulders going up like he's going to wake up. You know he's going to wake up. He's got to wake up. And sure enough, he does. But the energy and the closeness, like the sense of claustrophobia of him that close to the zombie, that scene itself always threw me as a kid.
Yeah.
The other one is exactly in the same vein, and that would be from Night Gallery, Rod Serling's Night Gallery. And it stars, what was David Carradine's dad's name?
John.
What was it?
John Carradine.
John Carradine. So
You're
it's
talking about the Richard Matheson episode.
The one about the two little kids, or the group of little kids, and they bump into him, John Carradine, and he tells them something they're not supposed to do.
I think it's called The Big Surprise.
Yeah, that's the one. That's the one. And the kids are out there as a group, and they're out there digging, looking for the gold, looking for the treasure.
I don't remember this. I'm going to check this out again.
Yeah, just look up Night Gallery, John Carradine.
I think it's in the one with the Lovecraft episode. That's at Peabody's last lecture.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Oh, I remember that.
Right. That was the one. That one, when I was a kid, my brother and I were told I couldn't have been any older than like 7 or 8. And my brother was, 9 or 10. My parents were going out for the evening, and they're like, don't you watch Night Gallery? Don't watch it. Right? Now,
specifically mention it.
Yeah, why did you specifically mention to like an 8 and 10-year-old kid not to watch it? So of course,
hey Chris, see that paint over there? Don't touch that paint right there.
That's right. Don't you eat those candies in that bowl. So yeah, that was the episode we watched, and of course, we were so terrified we ran screaming to our rooms. And my parents come home. Of course, we left the TV on the exact station that it was on, so they knew what we had done. They knew why I was crying.
You guys are sneaky.
Okay, to be clear, what year was this? Like the 70s, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So you had like 4 channels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay? So there was a pretty good chance it was going to be on the channel you weren't supposed to be watching anyway.
Yeah.
And just as an aside, that episode was preempted on the East Coast for the World Series. and I had to wait 2 more weeks for it, even though I knew I was into Lovecraft then, and I knew the last episode was a Lovecraft parody. And I was mad that they preempted it for 2 weeks.
Oh,
You never got it. You never got any. I never saw Lovecraft on television until then.
Okay, Rick. So I'm watching Alice Cooper concert on TV, and it's like 1972 or 3 in Cincinnati. It's just getting good, and he's just going to lay down in the guillotine. And the Cincinnati censor had had enough. They cut it off and put it on an episode of Rawhide. Never did get to see the trick.
God. By the way, another one of my Patreons and a live viewer, Robin Chang, says this interview with Christopher Lane is totally fascinating, especially the social roots of addiction. We'll be looking into his work avidly after the show.
Awesome.
You're making some more fans, man.
Oh, awesome. Thanks to everybody.
So
yeah. So going back to the book.
Well, back to the book. Yeah.
Should we
did
talk
segue
about
there.
Chris's work? Would that be a good
we did
idea?
segue there pretty
Can I make a point about the book?
Yes,
You
absolutely.
do an excellent job of using the Bram Stoker technique of mixing various narratives.
Oh, thank you very much.
Say that again, Rick. I only caught half of
He
it.
uses the Bram Stoker technique of mixing various narrators,
Yes.
and he does it very well.
Yeah. It's done really, really well.
Thank you very much.
And then it's only at the end when you think that you're done that you pull back I don't want to spoil it for anybody, but you pull back the curtain to reveal the big reveal,
Yeah.
which ties all the way back to the beginning.
Yeah.
Really, really well done. Because by
Thank you
that
very
point,
much.
you've forgotten how this book started, which I think is really interesting effect.
Thank you very much.
Really cool. I was not expecting that. And I tried, when I did the review, I tried not to give spoilers. I tried just to, and I'm trying not to, there's stuff I really want to talk to you about, but I can't.
I know.
There's just
I get it.
so much. Look, the book is here. Here's your little publishers. I've kept it all, man. It's sitting. There was a fanzine once called "It Goes on the Shelf," and this is one of the books that has gone on my shelf. And I was at a bookstore today, and I looked for Christopher Lane books.
Didn't you kind of grumble at me when I sent you this, and you're like, "Yeah, I'll take a look at it."
I did, because there's absolutely nothing about this book that says Lovecraft.
Pete Rollick would like this, but yeah,
and yet
you do.
I do. I really do enjoy this book.
Awesome.
So, what are you working on now?
Well, there's a couple of things that I'm. That's a good question. So I got a couple of things on the go. It's not a horror novel, but I had another novel that I had worked on a number of years ago, but had to put down because of other things going on in my life, and I sort of moved on. It's more of a young adult. I don't know if it even is young adult. I guess it's a closest genre that I can put it in, but it's a sort of a weird, surrealist, futurist, robotic retelling of Pinocchio. In a very strange universe that I've concocted. But I'm actually working on the next book in the 7 Coins Drowning series. Now, while people have asked me, is it a sequel to Screens? And the best answer I can give is no, it isn't a sequel to Screens, but it runs sort of parallel to it. And they definitely collide at points. Like there are moments in the book that you can see where they intersect. But it's the next.
So you're definitely rewarded by reading both. In other words,
that's right. But I don't ever want
people.
I don't ever want people to feel like they have to have read any of the other ones. Like if you have read one of the other ones, and you see where I've done the whole crossover episode thing, that's great, because personally, I love that in a book. When somebody winks at one of their other books or at someone else's book, that really just, I love
You're
that.
talking to Pete and Rick, who constantly talk about this stuff and love it.
Yeah, it's great, right? It's a great feeling when you have that.
I mean, they're basically Easter eggs in a way.
They are. That's it. Yeah, completely. It's an Easter egg. So the new book is again, it's along the same lines, and it is cosmic horror. It is Lovecraftian in its own way. And this one is again, there are multiple narrators, and there will be crossover with screens without a doubt. And yeah, I'm hoping to have this one done a lot faster than screens. This one should be done by probably February or March next year, and then editors and all that BS.
How many Seven Coins Drowning books are out at the moment?
There are 4 of them out right now.
The first one is Uncle Willingston, is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
And I've not read this one, but I read the synopsis on your website today, and it's just like, how can you not grab this book? It says Human Resources Director David Tanner is at his wit's end as to what to do. All he wants to do is get back to his safe, ordered life, but a former employee who keeps coming back again and again is making it impossible. This former employee won't leave without David Tanner's help, rambling about nonsense like time travel, the end of days, and his mad scientist Uncle Willingston, who is undoing the fabric of the universe. So much to contend with, plus a cat, which refuses to leave him alone. What's a human resources manager to do? I don't know how you could not buy this book and read it after that synopsis.
And if you read Screens, you recognize at least one name there.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I see what you're saying about them all sort of Easter egging each other. If we're making that a verb now. And that's cool. I really like that too.
So what haven't we talked about that you want to talk about?
I don't really know, man. I mean, the topic that most interests me as far as my book goes and some of the work that I've read recently goes is where, I don't get me wrong, I love all the Lovecraftian work. I think it's all amazing. But the work that most impresses me is some of the ones that you've mentioned, Pete, is the kinds of work where I see somebody taking it in a weird new direction. And that's something that always fascinates me when somebody, because, I'm not going to bag on anybody else's writing, but I've definitely bumped into my fair share of books where somebody has used Lovecrafts or Derleths or Longs or any of their characters or creatures or the mythos as basically window dressing, right? Where they've just kind of propped them up and it's a little bit creepy, but they're not really part of the story. But the people, the authors and the filmmakers and the game makers who are out there who are doing stuff that really push that mythos to the next level, like take it someplace that we've never seen before.
Absentia, for example.
Absentia, that was right off of your recommendations, man. Absentia blew me away. I had never heard of it. The Endless is another great example of that. The Banshee chapter is another great example of that.
Oh, good movie, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know, like if you go back to let's hanker back to old Virginia and get back to the 80s. I remember when John Carpenter's The Thing came out. And I had already been into Lovecraft at that point. And none of my friends were, but I was. And I remember watching that movie for the first time and thinking, wow, this is H.P. Lovecraft up and down the street. And he's, it's so clearly Carpenter has clearly taken a bunch of different things from different Lovecraft stories, At the Mouth of Madness and just, the horrific thing from out of space, even a little bit of The Color Out of Space. He took that and ran with it in a direction. And I guess that's something that I love to see more of and hear more about from you guys, because you guys are all clearly far more knowledgeable than I, but it's that kind of thing that I'm super interested in, is where people are taking the mythos in a brand new direction, taking it into a place that may not even directly connect to the mythos, but do something that have that same energy, that same Lovecraftian horror
Where it's
feel.
cosmic horror, but not necessarily mythos, like John Langan's The Fisherman.
Great
a lot,
example.
a lot of Laird Barron's work, and so on and so forth.
Right. So I agree with you completely, Chris.
Chris is fine.
Chris is fine. Okay, great. One of the things that I love about the mythos is that nobody controls it. And therefore, unlike some other fandoms where everything is tightly controlled and limited, we get a lot of authors coming in and experimenting with new ideas and new ways of telling stories and new monsters and new interpretations. And yeah, maybe 75 to 80 to 90% is crap or just doesn't work. But there's that 10%.
Yeah.
That's why I think that one of the, if I can say this without sounding like an ass, one of the things that all of us, not just me, but all of us on this show do for the audience is say, here's the 10% that's good. We really like this.
Yeah.
And yes, it is subjective, I grant you, but here's what we really liked. Like screens, for example.
Right. I can remember when Cody Goodfellow came out with Radiant Dawn, and what's the other one?
Ravenous Dusk.
Ravenous Dusk. I looked at these and there's no mythos name dropping in here at all, but it's clear that these are mythos novels.
Yeah, that's right.
And
right.
Christopher Moore does the same thing with his teenage trilogy. The one I can think of is a Rabid Growth.
Okay.
They're basically mythos novels without name dropping, and they're written for teenagers and starring teenagers. Really interesting takes. And then I honestly, and this is sort of self-serving, but the stuff that Oscar Rios promotes through Golden Goblin Press on the sort of new viewpoints. Let's not have the professor from Arkham be the main character anymore.
Right.
Can we get African American characters, Jewish characters, women, American Indians, Hispanics? How do they deal with all this stuff? And how do they deal with it in the context of their own experiences?
Yeah.
Those are the things that are fascinating to me.
Yeah, I mean, when I wrote Screens, obviously it's a book about addiction, and so my main character, the main character was actually a real person. He really was a real person.
Before the show, by the way, I was trying to think of a nice way, if it exists, because I have some experience with addiction, to ask you if you had experience with addiction. I thought you can't ask him that. So sure but you brought it up. So
the main character, the protagonist or the narrator, he was a real person, and unfortunately he was lost to his own addictions, first heroin and then alcohol. But I wanted the main character, I wanted the protagonist, exactly what you're talking about, Pete. That's exactly what I wanted. Was look, I've seen enough of the hard-boiled detective or the like you said, the professor from Arkham, or the hapless person who goes to look into his uncle's will and his house out there in the colds of Maine, right? We've seen a lot of that, and that's in many cases it's great. But I wanted the protagonist to be someone who was from a completely different world, someone who was very much, this guy's a bike messenger. He's a nobody. The book in many ways, at least for me, the book in many ways reads like a noir novel, right? Like he feels like a detective,
Right.
but he's not a detective, you know?
Wait a
He's this-
minute. I don't want to hear you call Kevin Bacon and Quicksilver a nobody again. All right.
Actually, it's funny that you bring that up, Mike, because when I was doing promotion,
I watched
for
that
the
movie
book-
when I was a kid. I was like, that's the perfect job.
It's funny that you bring that up because when I was doing promotion for the book, I was working with this ad company, and they said, "Oh yeah, we'll put some ads together, and we'll, you know, we know that your main character is a bike messenger." So they send through this like completely whitewashed picture of a bike messenger, right? He's like super clean cut, and he's got his perfectly clean bike shorts on. He's got a nice helmet on, and his backpack's all clean. And I said, "You've never actually met a bike messenger, have you?"
Right.
And he's like, "No." I'm like, "No, what you need is a guy who looks like he's high and probably is. He's got either dreadlocks or the greasiest hair you've ever seen. You're pretty sure the bottom of his bag with your packages has got something that he's delivering to his buddy." Right? Like that's what a bike messenger is. That picture you sent me is what people think bike messengers are.
But yeah, let's see who else. It's more of a King in Yellow, but like Memento Mori by Brian
Yeah.
Hauser that Pete recommended to me, and then we had him on the show. Such a great book. We mentioned Laird, we mentioned John Langan, John Horner Jacobs, Southern Gods.
That's a I gotta put that back up. That was one that was on my list. I'm gonna put it back on.
And then of course there's collections that have been doing the same things.
Right.
Um,
Oh God,
What's that?
what's his LaVey? Not LaVey. The Ballad of
Laval.
Ballad
Dr.
of Tom.
Laval, Battle of Black Tom. Yep.
Yeah,
There's some good stories, that are cosmically horrible, and like you said, Pete, speak to the mythos without directly mentioning it. In is it She Walks in Shadows? Is that
Yeah.
the collection?
yeah.
So there's some great stories in there that you can feel the inklings, you can feel like the tentacles on the edges, but they never directly connected.
right.
And coming back to movies, I mean, when I saw Absentia, man, that was a movie that you recommended, and I checked it out.
That makes me feel really great. Seriously.
I was blown away. Like I didn't know what I was walking into. And when I watched it, the movie, is it Mike? What's his name?
Yeah, he's getting pretty big time now.
Really leapt out at me as a great example of what Pete was talking about before. It's in the mythos, but you would never be able to find it anyplace in the mythos because the whole vibe of it feels very much like that, but done in its own unique way.
And the ending, which I won't spoil, but is brilliant, where it's, you know what happened, but they're throwing these maybe scenarios at you that
Yeah.
kind of is going through the cop's mind, you think.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, let's see what else.
But we were talking earlier. You were talking about it being noir, and one of the things I like about
Absentia's noir. I agree.
no, the screens being noir.
Oh, okay, right.
One of the things I like about mod noir is the reinterpretation and understanding of what is a detective and how do you solve the problem. Because ultimately the problem with a series detective is that they constantly have to be meeting new people and have a reason to get involved in their problems.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you don't solve this problem, your series, and this is why they're mostly cops, mostly medical, people or private detectives. Priests, things like that.
In some detective show books, they're priests because
Yes.
people come to them with problems.
Right. The things I have seen recently is garbage men.
I love it.
Garbage men. Yeah, I can see that.
Garbage men come into your neighborhood. They see everything you throw out.
What about a DoorDash driver or a
DoorDash
pizza
drivers,
guy?
The delivery guys, the guys in. Do you remember Brick? The movie Brick.
I tried to watch Brick and I failed.
No, I don't know that one.
It's literally a film noir set amongst high school drug dealers.
Okay, sure. I could see that.
Uh, Chris, while we're staying on movies, did you see The New Daughter?
No.
Yeah, you need to see The New Daughter.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
that's one that you're gonna thank me for, like you did for Absentia.
Okay, I'll put it up. I'll check it.
With Kevin Costner. Yeah,
Yeah, don't let that throw you.
don't let that throw you. As long as
Yeah.
Kevin
And
Costner,
don't, you know, I have to say, I really have to say with all these is don't watch the trailers. Maybe you do that anyway, but don't watch the trailers. Just go into The New Daughter completely blind.
Okay. I mean, that's how I went into Absentia. I walked in blind.
anyway, where I was going with this is Bicycle Messengers
Oh yeah.
are perfect noir characters.
Yeah.
They for one reason or another, they have a code that get that
Yeah.
package delivered on time.
That's right.
Don't look at it.
Yeah. You don't need to know what's in there. You don't need to, like, it's none of your business.
Right.
Just deliver it from A to B. But there is always that temptation, right? Like,
Right. And there's also
what is in that package?
There's also, it's like whoever you delivered it to, once it's done, it's done.
Yeah.
And then when they go off the rails, you know, and they get involved with the crying blonde or
Yeah.
the package
Don't
gets
do it.
opened, it's over, man. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Gotta get.
It's funny that you say that. I don't want to take up too much of you guys' time, but I wrote a piece.
You're fine.
I wrote a piece on
Scott, thank you.
I wrote a oh, awesome. Mike got or you guys got another tip. Nice.
Yeah. Thank you, Scott. Go ahead, Chris.
So one of the things that I explore in the book, and one of the things that I think about addicts is there's this, or at least for a certain type of addict, is there's this constant need to be pushing the envelope, right? Like, I got that high. How much higher can I get the next time? Right? There's always this sense of experiential, like, one-upmanship against yourself, of like pushing yourself out to the edge.
Like adrenaline.
And yeah, that's right. And so one of the things that leapt out at me, and I actually wrote a Medium article about it, which is about the mythos and the artistic edge, that in the arts, we're taught when you study art or start studying literature or film, there's this idea that you're trying to push people just out to an edge of it, right? They live in their little comfortable middle. And to expand art is, or to expand science, anything, is to go to the edge a little bit, right? You got to get out on the edge because that's where the new knowledge is. That's where the new ideas are. And I wrote this article that said, the great thing about cosmic horror is that that's exactly the opposite thing you want to ever tell anyone. You never want to tell somebody to go out to the edge, because out on the edge is where the bad stuff happens, right? That's when you did open the package. That's when you did listen to the blonde. That's when, you know what I mean? Like, in science or literature, like, oh, it's all lofty. Like, oh yes, we've pushed the envelope, we're out at the edge. But in cosmic horror, it's like, don't go in there. Don't look in that book. Like, that's the last thing.
Yeah, you know what, Chris? I always feel like if some aliens arrive sometime that are like Lovecraftian type aliens, you know, maybe not quite that much. They have spaceships and everything. I don't know, whatever. And they come because we've been sending signals out, you know.
Exactly.
And everybody's going to be going, who's the idiot who sent the message to
Right. Who's the moron who decided to send us directions?
Yeah.
On how to show up here?
Yeah. No, SETI, that was a bad idea. You know, yeah.
Chris, have you seen our friend Kelly Young, thank you. His movie, The Package.
Oh God. You've
I
seen that?
I have seen that.
It's just like that is like one of my favorite Lovecraftian films.
Kelly's like, if I knew everybody was gonna like it so much, I would have done a better job. And I'm like, no, man, you did a great job.
No, he did an amazing job. No, I have seen that.
It's so perfect. I didn't recognize Kelly's voice as the voiceover.
Right.
You know, reading the letter.
Yeah.
So.
No, I actually did see that, and that was from you guys. Somebody else kicked me that as a recommendation, and I was like, oh yeah, that's got me written all over it. Loved it. Absolutely loved it.
Yeah, you just can't even talk about that 2-minute, 3-minute short film without ruining the entire thing.
Yeah, you have to. It would be one big spoiler.
Yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, you mentioned a few minutes ago, I don't want to keep you guys. Robin James says, this is a great conversation. Don't stop. You know, yeah, as far as the new stuff, even Stephen King has done some subtle stuff. Revival, I thought this wasn't name dropping. You know, this wasn't Jerusalem's Lot. You know, this was pure cosmic horror that I never want to read. This is a great book that I am never going to read again because that ending was so horrible. You know, so scary. I mean, not horrible.
It's actually both.
Yeah,
So-
it's a good ending. I mean, as far as writing goes.
It's true horror.
Yeah,
We have
it's
some
it's true hopelessness. It's true horror.
We have some breaking news.
Yes.
Stephen Graham Jones has won Best Novel for The Only Good Indians for the Shirley Jackson Award.
Oh, wow.
He's
Nice.
He won Novella for Night of the Mannequins.
Wow.
And Kathy Koja won Best Collection for Velocities.
Wow.
That's great
Yes.
The
news.
same Kathy Koja that was just here.
Yep. So
Wow. Well, congratulations to both of them. They
Of course,
deserve
now
it.
that she's a winner, she's not coming back to us. So
Yeah,
that's
no,
I was gonna joke, but I didn't want to be that guy. I figured I'd leave it to you guys to make that.
It's no
Yeah,
joke. It's just
she's too nice.
if you hit it
Even
big,
even Steven comes on the show.
no. If you hit it big, you'll not answer our calls. We're used to it.
Hey, I got nominated for the Shirley Jackson. Is that big enough for you, or
yeah, where's your
No.
little stone? You should have a stone someplace.
I have it right here,
All right, there you go.
Shirley
There it is.
Jackson. Yep.
So
And it's
the
all
other one-
thanks to Pete's story
No,
in the book, Autumn Cthulhu.
the other
And
winners.
Laird and John Langan and Nadia Volk, and those people wrote some good stories too. But it was Rollick pushed me over the edge to get that nomination.
The other winners are J. Ashley Smith for the novelette The Attic Tragedy from Meerkat Press, which Kathy mentioned it before. And then R.A. Busby for short story Not the Man I Married.
The Shirley Jackson Awards are the ones that I think the most of. They're where it's at. I'm trying to think of. I'm not trying to diss anybody else. That's how I feel about it. So
anyway, yeah, I mean that's kind of cool that just broke.
That's great. Yeah, thank you, Pete.
Thanks, Pete.
Yeah, that's Ellen posting, live feeds.
Yeah, you can count on that. Ellen's Lovecraftian collection, not Lovecraft's Monsters, the one a couple years before that.
Lovecraft Unbound
Yes.
Lovecraft Unbound, which
or Children. And
that's
she also
the one.
did Children of Lovecraft was the third.
No, Lovecraft Unbound.
Yeah, I think
It was before I got into this whole business, I guess you might say. And I thought, what a great collection of cosmic horror that just wasn't fan service. And I know it's been done before, but I just thought it was a great collection. And what especially impressed me was Nathan Ballingrad and oh crap, he's gonna kill me. Nathan Ballingrad and let's see, Lovecraft Unbound. Let me Google it. In my defense, it's been a rough week. Dave, hang on a second, I'll tell you. Or maybe I won't. I reprinted it. You'd think I'd know. Yeah, the Crevest by Dave Bailey and Nathan Ballingrad.
Yeah. Okay.
And forgive me, Dale, if you ever watch this or read this or listen to this, excuse me. But they were all great stories. But that was the story that hit me in that collection, that this is cosmic horror. This is subtle.
Mm.
You know, for anyone who's interested and doesn't know, these guys were kind enough to let me reprint this in the Lovecraft eZine website, and you can read it for free. Just go to the Lovecraft eZine, lovecraftezine.com. There's a search bar at the top right underneath the banner and the tabs. Just type in the crevice, CREVASSE, and you can read the entire story for free, and it's a hell of a story. But those are the kinds of things that you're talking about, Chris.
Yeah, that is.
In my view.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I'd say the only other person that leaps out at me, or the other writer that leaps out at me that really impressed me in that same vein, is oh God, hold on. Right, the moment I go to say his name.
Oh, believe me, I know what you mean.
Laird Barron.
Matt Carden.
Oh, Matt Carden. Yes, absolutely.
Matt Carden. To Rouse Leviathan.
Yes.
Obviously, the later stories in the book get much more. They mention the mythos a lot more, but the earlier stories are.
So I gotta say about Matt Carden, he wrote The God of Foulness, right?
Yeah,
that's his story. To me, that's right. A brilliant Lovecraftian story without any Lovecraft. It's just it's a bloody brilliant story, so strange, and yet makes so much sense.
Yeah, the God of Foulness, the cult of people and their sicknesses.
Yeah,
right.
You're absolutely right about Matt, and To Rouse Leviathan is amazing.
Yeah, but I think that's kind of the theme of what we've been talking about. Is that's what I was shooting for with Screens, was when I've read these works or seen these films or even played games where people have taken a new direction. That was the thing that most thrilled me. Was that the thing that originally thrilled me, and I think thrilled all of us about Lovecraftian horror back in the day, was that it wasn't Poe. It wasn't the old world of horror, right? It was very much something that made you go, oh God, that really hit me in a place that I didn't expect it to hit me. And that's the feeling that most thrills me with any horror, cosmic or otherwise, is somebody took me someplace that I never expected to be taken. They frightened me or made me feel horrified or felt me feel despair in a way that I hadn't ever felt before.
Exactly.
And that's what I'm always chasing.
2 movies. We've just talked about one, and I want to talk about the other one that hit me that way. Was if memory serves, when I started to watch Absentia, I did not know it was Lovecraftian. You know, that it had cosmic horror overtones. And when I said to Mike Flanagan, I said, I hope you don't mind, but I see this as a Lovecraftian film. And he said, no, it's a huge compliment. I love Lovecraftian themes. And you know, so it's nice you're watching a horror movie and all of a sudden it goes in that direction and you didn't expect it at all. The other thing that made me feel hopelessness and made me feel just really off kilter, and I'm in the middle of my third rewatch, is It Follows. And I was tweeting about it last night, and there's a really great article on it.
That's a good segue into that discussion if you want to go there.
I actually do want to go there, if that's okay with you guys, and if that's okay with Chris.
Yeah, go for it, man.
Yeah, so By Screens by Chris Lane. Chris, please stick around. I hope you will for a little bit. Yeah, so let me find my notes here. Sorry. I was watching last night and I stopped and after a few minutes and I just did a little Googling and everything, and I came up with this site. Where's it at? Man, I'm doing really great today. Oh, here we go. If It Follows theories. Sorry about that, folks. It's on something called Creepy Catalog. Here's why you missed the scariest part of It Follows. And if you go to my Twitter account and you scroll down from last night, you can see me. I linked to it. It's my Twitter account is on the links in the show notes. Now, I posted about this. First thing I want to read is what Laird said in response, because he's a big fan of the movie too. So he posted an article that he wrote on his blog 6 years ago. And I asked him if I could read this, and he said yes. He said, I am frequently asked, what scares you? And this is Laird talking. Or more recently, what's the scariest thing that's ever happened to you? People might expect me to say something about blizzards or falling through the ice or getting lost in the wilderness or doppelgangers. While all of these things have a foothold in my mind, among the most dreadful experiences I've had is a recurring nightmare of walking along an endless sidewalk in a Seattle neighborhood. The dream has haunted me for 20 years. And the scenario is always the same. It's late and overcast. Dead leaves cover the wet lawns and clog the gutters. Street lamps ignite a murky twilight haze, and my shadow stretches before me. Something awful trails me. I don't know what it is or where it is, except that it's malevolent and that it only emerges between glances over my shoulder and inexorably closing the distance. I wake before I make it to my door, and the sense is that moment of awakening is the moment of my death. Today I went to a matinee of It Follows. My only company in the theater was an usher who patrolled the walkway every 20 minutes or so like a shark cruising the shadows. I'm not going to say much directly about this film. Hype aside, director David Robert Mitchell doesn't reinvent the genre so much as take a nightmare and filter it through the lenses of John Carpenter and James Cameron. The story isn't shiny or new. The threat isn't breathtakingly original. No, we have met it before. We've known it all along. It is old and scaly as our dark hindbrain. It lurks within the clammy, clumsy first embrace with a stranger. It lurks between the lines of the story of the birds and the bees, and it lurks at the overheated core of the North American horror tradition. That pleasant, inevitable familiarity is precisely what makes It Follows affecting. Mitchell gets it so right because he takes on the relationship between category horror and sexuality. He sets our terror of intimacy and pleasure within the confines of an inescapable nightmare powered by its own illogical and contradictory progressions. He's accomplished a devastating takedown of a Judeo-Christian infected horror and its insatiable, I can't talk today, preoccupation with hedonistic sex and nubile youth and the corresponding compulsion to punish and destroy that youth. Walking back to my truck after the show, I glanced warily at a guy shuffling across the lot. It occurred to me from the ache in my arms that I had been white-knuckling for an hour and change. Of course, I chuckled ruefully and moved on. Been a while since a horror movie got into my head, and much longer since one has inhabited my subconscious to the degree that I swam up from a nap to type out a few sleep-drugged thoughts on the experiences. His film took me back to my nightmare wasteland of deserted Seattle streets and the sense of being stalked by some incarnation of malevolence. My baggage is unique, and what disquiets me will leave another shrugging. Most will understand the nightmare, though. Most share it in some form. Mitchell certainly does, and It Follows taps that primordial vein. I don't have it in front of me, but it makes me think of that poem, like one who on a lonely road does walk in fear and dread, because he knows a fearsome fiend does close behind him tread. Something like that. But I told Laird that nightmare of walking these streets, feeling like something's behind you, following you, is just so eerie and disquieting, you know. So that's what I'll say about that. The article on It Follows says it talks about The Shining. Director Stanley Kubrick employed a lot of techniques to keep the viewer feeling off balance or eerie without knowing why. For example, windows appearing in offices where there couldn't have been a window. Jack Torrance inexplicably reading an issue of Playgirl magazine before his job interview, and it goes on, and it works because subconsciously your brain is picking up on those things, but you don't know it. I think that's exactly what David Robert Mitchell did in It Follows. There are a few different theories at play here. Allow me to explain. First thing he says is, and I don't know why I never noticed this. Maybe it was because the girl's reading a Kindle, or at least a round Kindle, if you remember. The film has no time period. And rewatching it, I thought about how right that was. All the phones are on the walls with cords, yet this girl's reading on a Kindle. And it goes on. I'm not going to bore you guys by reading the whole article, but Jeff's mom is totally rocking the 1980s mom look in that, ironically. I noticed there is, and you have to have subtitles on to notice this, but when the guy is getting stuff out of the refrigerator, like 20 minutes into the film, he opens the refrigerator, says, "Man on TV, David Karras, challenger, and world pocket billiard champ Willie Mosconi. Their cross-country match ends in Chicago." And I'm like, okay, I've heard these names, but who are these guys? I look them up. These guys are playing pool in the 30s, 40s, and 50s. And yet some of this movie looks like it's set in the 80s, yet a girl is reading a Kindle, yet they're talking about guys from the 30s and 40s playing pool. It's really, really weird.
Yeah, I like that aspect. I've seen that done before, both in books, but it works particularly well in film and television.
Yeah.
Where someone will add these elements that give this dreamlike quality to things.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's surrealism to an extent, but it also feels like it's a dream because no one really takes any of it. It's never pushed on you, right? There's never a sense of, I'm going to cram this in your face, that there's an 80s phone on the wall and they're reading a Kindle. It's not pushed on you, but it's just subtle enough that you get that weird sort of dreamlike feeling. You know what I'm talking about? That weird dreamlike feeling, like, wait, what's going on?
The other thing that he mentioned was the seasons. In one scene, she's in the pool. Remember? The protagonist? Then she goes on a date that night and they're wearing winter coats. And everybody else is too.
That's right. That's right. I'm going to have to go back and rewatch it now. But no, you're right. That is true.
And if Bridget were here, she would say something that I'm going to say now, would probably say it better, that the soundtrack is extremely effective as well. That's another topic, but it is. And it goes back to this, I don't want to call this movie Lovecraftian at all, but it goes back to this, the doom is inevitable. Yeah. Pete, you want to say some things? Rick, Matt?
So years ago, after I got done, when my son was probably around 17 or 18, we finished watching most of the classic films, and he said to me, "The monster that scares me the most is the Blob. Because it has no rules, it has no reason, it can't be argued with, it can't be killed, it just eats everything."
It's just like the whatever they call it, or the entity, and It Follows.
Yeah, it just keeps coming.
Which reminds me of what they say about death in Lake Mungo. It's just this machine. It doesn't care. It keeps coming and coming.
Well,
I'm sorry, Pete, go on.
No, but you're making my point for me. It Follows, whatever it is just a machine. It has some fucked up rules, which you can tweak to your advantage. I mean, it looks like you can send it backwards, or you can reset the clock by having sex again. But other than that, it's going to keep coming for you. And so it's a very effective monster. And it gets you right there where you least expect it, where it's just going to keep coming. And you're the only one who might see it. And it will do horrible things to you. And everybody will watch and not be able to intervene. Because it's not interested in that.
Pete, I think you hit on a really good point of, and your son did as well with the Blob and with It Follows, is one of the things that terrifies me in any writing is something that relates back to that sense of the universe is this uncaring thing. And it's not that it's a mean thing. It's not that it's malevolent. It just doesn't care, right? It's like, oh, why did I get sick? That's just the universe, right? And that feeling is, your son's right. That is one of the most terrifying feelings, is like, this thing's coming. It doesn't have anything to do with me. It's not intelligent. It's not personal. It's just the way things are. And you have to deal with that, with the existential dread of that fact, that this is just how it is. And you can't escape it. There is no force to be reckoned with. There's no intelligence, nothing. It literally is just, it's going to keep coming no matter what you do. I love that feeling.
It's like that episode of The Twilight Zone where the astronauts are disappearing.
Yep.
Yes, I love that episode.
Yep.
You don't have any idea why, but it's just going to keep happening.
Yeah.
Which is why that book that I've recommended so many times on this show that I read in the 80s, that I always blank on the title. You know what I'm talking about, Pete?
Nope.
Oh man.
It's about that disappearing kid, right?
Yeah.
Somehow he slips through the cracks of everyone's memory, and now he's just fading away. But the thing is about that book, I forget the name of it. It was written for, I guess, junior high school kids around the time it came out. So,
High school. But yeah.
Well, I think actually younger, because it has a more positive kind of ending than it.
Well, he's 17 and he talks about he's had sex with his girlfriend before.
Oh, I forgot that part. But
I'm sure
then
you
that's
did.
probably high school. But it really had a kind of an almost upbeat ending that took it sort of out of the realm of horror for me, but it was certainly thought-provoking.
I disagree, because when he doesn't remember what happens, but when he finds the tape recorder, he realizes that what happened was that there's something out there that is playing chess with all of their lives. It doesn't care. And there's absolutely nothing that he can do about it. Now he's got to live with that knowledge for the rest of his life. I don't see that as a happy ending. I see that as this is not knowledge I wanted to really know.
Well, he came back though. See, he didn't fade
yeah,
away.
He did come
nothing.
back, but not everybody is that lucky, I bet.
Right.
God, I wish I could.
I get that same vibe we're talking about, and that Pete's son talked about. I get that same vibe of something that is that's horrible, but without it being malevolent or intelligent. Is Stanislaus is Lem's Stanislaus Lem's Solaris.
Well, that's life. I mean, if you think about it.
Yeah, exactly.
How many antelope die in bed surrounded by their loved ones? No, when they're finally a little too sick, they get et. They get ripped apart alive and eaten, or they die of some horrible disease, parasitic illness. It's like there are orchids. that are evolved to look like wasps to attract them sexually, so they go and pollinate. They've taken advantage of this chemical produced by a wasp to induce pollination. Mother Nature is not a creature, it's chemistry, physics, and biology. That's all it is.
Yeah.
The universe does not care if you're having fun.
It's
does
like
not.
the universe is Azathoth. It is just a big idiot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really wish I could remember the name of that book because I love it so much. And I have 2 copies, but I recommended it so much that
You gave them away.
no, there are like 2 copies left, and they're all like $1,000 or something.
So yeah.
The book that the sister is reading in It Follows is The Idiot. Do you guys remember that?
Right. By
And
Dostoevsky.
Yeah.
Dostoevsky,
Yeah.
that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, and the very last line, I believe, in the film, and I looked this up because I wanted to get it right, sums up really the theme of the film, I think, and the theme of cosmic horror, and the theme of a lot of what we've been talking about. And that is, but I should imagine the most terrible part of the whole punishment is not the bodily pain at all, but the certain knowledge that in an hour, then in 10 minutes, then in half a minute, then now this very instant, your soul must quit your body, and that you will no longer be a man, and that this is certain. Realizing that there's nothing that you can do about it. Bye, Matt. Thank you for being here.
Bye.
Thanks, Matt.
So yeah, it's interesting that she's reading The Idiot on her round Kindle. I don't know if she's reading it in a book or on her round Kindle at the end, but she's definitely reading The Idiot at the beginning, because her sister goes, "What are you reading?" And she goes, "The Idiot." She goes, "So you're reading about Ryan or whatever their friend's name is there." So anyway, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but yeah, I just seem to get more out of It Follows every time I watch it.
That's how I feel about Pitch Perfect. I mean, Rear Window.
Pitch Perfect, yeah.
No, Rear Window. Every time I watch Rear Window, I get something else out of it.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah, I can see that.
Titans 3, thumbs up or thumbs down before we go?
I haven't seen it.
I'm
Yeah,
not sure. 3 episodes were good. I don't think they were great.
Yep.
Let's see where they go.
That's right where I'm at. Yeah. Yes, to those who have asked me, real skeletons were used in the making of Poltergeist.
Yes, they were. They were cheaper.
In that scene, and it's on Snopes. You can look it up. So,
Did you get a chance to see What If? Like,
not yet. I was going to wait a few episodes and then watch a few at a time. Because there's just one right now, isn't there?
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, did you like it, Pete?
I did. I think it was pretty good. I think that episode could have been expanded easily to an hour.
Yeah.
But I think for the time slot they have, I think they did a pretty good job.
I agree with you.
Couple more things.
And it is Lovecraftian
It is.
and may connect to Doctor Strange.
Wait, what? It is?
Oh yeah.
I may have to watch it tonight. Then.
Becomes very Lovecraftian at the end.
Well, speaking of Lovecraftian, thanks for telling me that. I'm going to watch it tonight now. Here's a Screen Rant headline. From a Buick 8 will be Stephen King's most Lovecraftian movie. So I like From a Buick 8, but as our friend Kelly Young says, who's been to film school, this is a book that doesn't have a third act. And it is a book that I really like, but it'd be interesting to see how they're going to change this.
To make it a film.
Yeah, I mean, it's mostly about this thing that sort of looks like a Buick that the state troopers guard for decades and there's not a lot of action there. It's an interesting story, and it's really interesting to be in the lives of these guys. If you've read the book, but oh man, I don't know. It's going to take somebody special to translate this to a movie.
Yeah.
What do you guys think?
Well, first of all, I disagree with the premise of the article. You know, I don't know how you beat The Mist.
That's
or,
true.
Or It.
That's true.
As more Lovecraft.
It's clickbait.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that they're making From a Buick 8 as a movie, into a movie.
Yeah.
Instead of, say, Revival.
Right. But the moment look, somebody's going to option Revival and somebody's going to make Revival, and then that will be King's most Lovecraftian movie ever. You know, it's just the way it is.
How they end for Buick 8 is going to be interesting. It has no
Yeah.
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 But you know, I still consider Children of the Corn Lovecraftian. And
Yeah, I can see that.
you know, He Who Walks Behind the Rose is something. But and then whatchamacallit, In the Tall Grass.
God, I hate that one.
I know you hate that one.
Oh, I hate that one.
The story of the book. I mean, you hate the movie, but what do you think of the story?
I hate both of them.
But anyway.
They should be killed with fire. Both of them should be killed with fire. I'm trying to find that. Yeah, I guess I'm not going to find it. Last but not least, the most important news of the night is obviously that Batman is getting an audio drama series. You guys look very excited. You look very pleased.
Who's getting a?
Batman.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah, you know, Graphic Audio, are you familiar with that company?
Uh-huh.
Graphic Audio did some Justice League, Batman, Superman. I've got all of those. And they lost the rights, which I believe I understand why now. And so now the Dark Knight is getting some more. I love audio drama. If you watch the show, you know that, Chris. So I'm loving the idea of this.
I can see that.
And I hope they do. I hope they take it to a detective street level type thing. Don't you, Pete?
Well, yes, but I would prefer that they do it with the question. But that's just me.
Well,
Batman's more of a commercial.
Right.
Yeah,
They
exactly.
have to go with what they. But I would love for the question to be a character. You know.
Yeah, I've made my point on this too many times, but you know, DC has a great many of characters that could just be used all over the place to do some fun stuff for not a lot of money.
Yeah, Phantom Stranger.
I
would like to see the Creeper.
I would like to see the Creeper too, but on the Phantom Strangers, like, welcome listeners to the Phantom Stranger Radio Hour.
I love it. Yeah, the Whistler or the Man in Black.
Yeah, exactly.
That
Just
thing.
You know, or House of Secrets, House of Mystery. Those would be great podcast dramas.
Yeah.
I know. But I think the powers that be at whoever owns them now, is it AT&T?
Don't get me started, please.
They just see.
Oh my God.
They're trying to they see the characters as things that they can put into movies, and don't understand that the comic books and the writers of the comic books are what's driving drama and creating interesting stories that you can then translate into film. And it just
I think it was DeBronzo. We were talking about Suicide Squad on the Patreon podcast on Thursday, which is available on video right now and will be available on audio soon for patrons. But I think it was DeBronzo, correct me if I'm wrong, that said the problem is that Marvel Studios is a studio,
right,
and there is no such thing as DC Studios.
right.
And I never thought about that before, DeBronzo. I know you're listening live, and yeah, that's the problem.
Marvel Comics has been run by
Fans.
well, one or two people. Marvel. I'm sorry, the Marvel Comics MC universe, the MCU, or
Right.
Marvel Cinematic Universe, has been run by a handful of people with an over guiding arc of where they wanted to go and what they wanted to do.
Right.
DC is throwing shit at the wall and seeing what sticks.
Right.
And look, Tim Burton's Batman is great. Christopher Nolan's Batman is different. What's his name? Ben Affleck, who I can't remember the director.
Zack Snyder.
Is different,
Mm-hmm.
but they don't jive together, and therefore you have no arc. You're constantly just like DC does in the comics. They're constantly rebooting their universe because they write themselves into corners. So
Yeah, that's true. And you could even work with that if you did it right. But when you think the story is over at Marvel, okay, end game, that's it, right? We're done. They did a great job. They're done. No, here they go into phase 4 with WandaVision, with Loki.
Yeah. And
with
Captain America: Winter Soldier.
Yeah, Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
And it's brilliant. I mean, someone has an actual plan,
Right. And this harkens back to where I saw this previously was in Babylon 5, where you had stories told within an overarching storyline, and everything moved that plot forward.
But then they lost it all.
Yeah, and then they lost it all.
They could have ended it, and they tried to prolong it.
Yep.
With TNT, and they lost their way.
Yep. Yeah.
And Deep Space Nine ended up being the series that they should have been.
Right. Which is funny because originally when Deep Space Nine started, it was floundering.
Mm-hmm.
And Babylon 5 was stealing watchers and becoming better. Mm-hmm. And then in the end, Deep Space Nine,
blew Babylon 5 away.
Yeah, it adopted a war scenario, did that as its over arc, and blew everything else away.
Anybody watching, I've thought about this. I've talked about this many times on the show. This is driving me crazy. Can you think of that book that we're talking about? It's such a great Lovecraftian book before I knew anything about cosmic horror or Lovecraft. So anyway, okay, yeah, I'll watch What If tonight.
All right, yeah, watch What If.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yes, please look at the show notes and buy screens. Look at Chris's website and buy the rest of his books. Kathy Koja's darkfactory.club, obviously. And if you've not read Kathy Koja books, my God, you really should, is all I can say. Thanks for being on the show, Chris.
Oh, no, it's my pleasure, man. It was really great talking with you guys, finally putting faces to emails. And I know we've chatted back and forth over quite a while, and I've definitely checked out you guys' stuff over the years. So yeah, no, it's been great being here. So I popped a link in the channel for two things. One was to those book trailers I was talking about. So there's a YouTube channel that's got the book trailers in it. The second one is you were talking about In the Tall Grass.
Yeah.
And how much you didn't like it. Well, I sent you a link as well on YouTube to one of the what is it? Love, Death, and Robots. You know, Love, Death, and Robots, the
Yes.
animated
Familiar.
series.
I don't think I've seen it.
If you've not seen it, there's one episode called The Tall Grass.
Yes.
And it made me think of it, and it actually will redeem the term "the tall grass" for you, because it is not only a brilliant piece of animation, and it not only has a main protagonist who looks surprisingly like a young H.P. Lovecraft, but it is a brilliant piece of Lovecraftian short fiction, like a short film. And if you get a chance, get your hands.
I just pulled it up. I also pulled up what looks like a Brilliant Screens official book trailer. So I'm gonna.
But anyway, it's been my distinct pleasure to get a chance to chat with you guys. When my next book comes out, I'd love to come back and take you guys through that
please.
as well.
You just, you know, I've got a lot of authors and creative people and books in my head. So please don't be shy about saying, "Hey, Mike, can I come back on?" Because if I don't email you, it's certainly not deliberate. Last thing I want to say is we spent a lot of time near the end here talking about cosmic horror and being subtle and everything. And I want to say something. There's also something to be said for straight up mythos, Lovecraftian fiction, pastiche that's done well.
Yes.
And there is a young man that does this very well. What, you think I'm going to say you?
No, I completely disagree.
No, and this person is, yes, it's Pete Rollick. Read Reanimators and the rest of his books. And what would you recommend people start with, and then we'll let everybody go.
Reanimators is probably the best place to start, but the Peasley Papers is really good. There's going to be something
the publisher was certainly pretty awesome.
Yes. For the H.P. Lovecraft Film Festival in October in Portland, Jack and Apes Press is releasing my Lovecraftian Christmas ghost story.
Oh, nice.
In a small press chapbook. And then next year we're going to release my new novel, The Eldritch Equations.
Nice.
Actually, if you type in PeteRollick.com, not PeterRollick.com, I didn't want 2 R's. If you type in, I'm so sorry. If you type in PeteRollick.com, it will take you, I set this up years ago, it will take you directly to Pete's Amazon page. I make absolutely nothing off of this, but I just thought it was an easy way since Pete doesn't have a website, you can go, it'll take you straight to his books. So my point is, there is a place for folks like John Langen's The Fisherman, Laird Barron, Screens, Matt Card, and everything we've been talking about. And then there's a place for some really, really great Lovecraftian pastiche. Pastiche has a really bad connotation sometimes, but it shouldn't. There is a lot of bad pastiche out there, but there's some really good mythos fiction, if you don't want to use the word pastiche, and Pete writes it. So
yikes.
I know. Now you have to come back.
Yeah.
No pressure, Pete. No pressure at all, man.
So
right?
Yeah, you better start writing some more books there, buddy.
Yeah.
Not that DeBronzo messaged me yesterday and goes, "Did you see what Pete wrote on his Facebook page?" You know, he's like, "We wrote like this 4 or 5 part whole thing." I'm like, "Yeah, he probably did that between his coffee percolating and getting the cup of coffee, knowing Pete." So
it was just an outline for like what we were talking about. Those would be really
I know, but
movies.
I'm like, guy's a genius. So anyway, everyone, thank you. I see Robin Chang just edited his pledge from 5 to 10. Thank you.
Oh.
No, you were gonna say, he's like, "I'm through with this shit."
Get my money back.
Yeah, Dave. If I'm through with Davis, I'm through with Rollick. Rick's okay. Anyway, thanks guys for being here. Chris,
so much.
really great to meet you in person,
Yeah.
more or
Thank
less.
you.
And Rick, thanks for being here, Pete. And we will see everybody next week with, I think, Casey Lansdale.
I'm not done listening to her albums yet.
Well, maybe you should get on that.
Yeah.
So anyway, thanks everybody, and
Thanks,
we
guys.
will see you next week.
Yeah.